Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and we've been moon watching today, I guess you could say. Kind of watching the Artemis 2 mission as it swoops around the moon, and they should be on their way home shortly, or if not now. But anyway, so with that being said, I guess you could pretty well guess what day we recorded this, Monday, April 6th. And we are going to talk about, this kind of stems from a quote from Steve Jobs in a Walt Mossberg interview where he said, "Good artists copy and great artists steal." And we are not condoning the fact that you steal anything, just to make that clear. But we do want to say that, sometimes what he said can lead to inspiration. And so that's what this is all about, is what inspires us. So I will bring in these guys, Dave and Dwight. Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing, Greg? Hey, Dave.
Hey, Greg.
Good. So, I think everybody that does photography or any kind of art really is inspired by something. So, I think I've probably said this in the past at some point, that I get inspired by, scrolling through Instagram or more recently Glass, looking at people's pictures. Sometimes I can do a search for, an iPhone model, maybe the current one that I have at the time, and I can see what they're doing with that device. That way I can say, okay, if they can do that, maybe I can do that. And I can sometimes even try to replicate what they shot, as long as it's doable. I'm not going to be able to get a big mountain picture, but do you guys find that you get inspired by other people's images or other people's work?
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of what fuels me, really, and I know in this particular podcast, we're going to talk about a couple things that really inspired us, I think, to maybe get going or to continue. But for me, it's the same thing, Greg, going through the social media, looking at the challenging stuff, maybe taking a class here or finding a nice YouTube channel that explains things. That's the stuff that really inspires me. And not just people, but my environment inspires me. People inspire me. My environment inspires me. Everywhere you go, you can really find beauty in something. So it may be your backyard, really. You can go macro in your backyard. You can take a picture of your backyard and turn it into some type of artwork. It's. I guess we're all blessed. It's all, I think, based on perception. I think it's just limitless as far as the inspiration you can get out there. But looking forward to this podcast because there were some early key inspirations for me, I think, to put me on my journey.
How about you, Dave? Anything come to mind?
In terms of individuals, especially when I know some people are just starting off, it's one of those, you don't know what you can do. It's kind of like getting started with a blank sheet of paper. If you have a blank sheet of paper, you have unlimited options, but the problem is you have unlimited options and you don't know what tools are available.
Yeah.
Where when you start looking at people and you start seeing what other people do, especially if they're using a similar device. I could look at someone who uses a 600 millimeter, zoom lens on a $10,000 body, and it's amazing photo. I can't replicate it. I can't even get close to it per se with an iPhone. But if you can see someone saying, oh, here's something I tried on an iPhone, here's how it turned out, or here's how I did it, you can try just to experiment. And knowing at least what directions people have gone in the past gives you the path that you can go down that way, or kind of use as a stepping board to think, okay, someone did this, but how about if we go from here to this step over here? So I think that's one of the biggest kind of ways just to get yourself started.
Yeah. And I think that would probably work even once you're into it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I draw my inspiration from when I first started taking pictures with my iPhone. My inspiration was Jack Hollingsworth. He did some YouTube videos for Camera Plus, and that app was really big at the time. So of course I got the app, and he was showing about how he uses the white balance, just all the different things that you could do with that app at the time. And I was really inspired by that. And, I ended up buying his book called The Joy of iPhoneography and read that and got some inspiration from that. But I got a lot of inspiration from mostly at the time. Like I was doing photography for years before that with a digital camera, a DSLR or whatever. But at that time, once I started getting into using the iPhone, I started drawing my inspiration from a lot of people on Instagram. And like I said, and just trying to find out what my style is, I guess you could say. So we're going to, we're just going to go through some pictures that we were inspired to take these pictures from somebody or something. It was either a who or a what inspired us. And I think it's really fitting to start with Dave's first one. And it's one of the moon. So, Dave, what was it that inspired you to take this shot?
It was a lot of Shane Mostyn's work just to see what was possible. And this was taken with an iPhone 13 Pro Max. So this is a few-year-old phone. Just to see what's possible and knowing that the tips, you just can't simply point your camera at the moon and take a photo, at least with an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one day, that's my dream. Maybe one day they'll get better at it. But, just to see, it is, give it a try. It's possible. It's not as simple as you may think, but give it a try and experiment with it. Same thing with the star shots, star trails.
Or like star.
Not only
Yeah,
star
yeah.
trails, but just like a nighttime shot where you have the star field out there. And knowing that you don't necessarily even have to be in a middle of nowhere location. You can be in a suburb of a city and
Like Dale Lotherington's
Yeah.
case in point.
and you can really get some good results there. And it's worth trying because at least for me, one thing that I really dislike is when I try something and I'm just banging my head against the wall and it may be someone says, "You know what? Technically, you can't do this shot with the equipment you have. It's not that don't you give it a try, but technically you can't do it. It's like, okay, I'll stop banging my head against the wall because there's no reason to keep banging my head against the wall because I technically can't do it. Well, knowing it's technically possible, then it's just a matter of refining your skills. And
Yeah.
like I said, given the fact that Artemis, as like you said, as we're recording, they have gotten out of radio silence and they are on the way back to the Earth. They're in a free return, so all they have to do is a little minor adjustments here and there on the way back. And I think 4 plus days, they'll be splashing down, probably not too far away from Dwight. They'll be in the Pacific Ocean, probably off the California coast. So
Yeah. So, okay, so we've got a link for Shane's Facebook group in the show notes, and it's been there for ages. Of course, as everybody knows, Shane's been on the show before. And, just going to his Facebook group, there's tons of inspiration there from a lot of great mobile photographers. And there's iPhone and Android in that group. But a lot of people, because of the nature of the group, tend to take night photos. And every time there's a full moon, people are getting pictures of it. The last few full moons, I've really haven't really had the desire to do it because I've done it before. But before I did it with an iPhone, I was so pumped to try to do it, to see what was capable. And of course, you've got one night to get the full moon. Otherwise it's, starting to either you're just getting into full or just getting out to full or whatever. But of course, and weather permitting too. I mean, I live in a county where it's doom and gloom all winter long, like gray skies, like crazy. But so to see a full moon is, kind of a lucky thing here. But my point is, when I first started, I was really excited to do it. And then once I did it, then that excitement kind of subsided a little bit. But, and sometimes if it's a special full moon, like, the one that's closest to the Earth or whatever, you tend to want to maybe give it another try just because it's special. But in Shane's group, there's a lot of great pictures in there to draw inspiration from. And, I think it's a great place to start if you're looking for inspiration is just look at other people's work. So this was with your 13 Pro, so that's probably about what, 3 years ago,
At
Dave?
least, because I'm trying to remember, was that the phone I had before this 13? Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
phone
I
before
think it
this,
was.
so that was a few years ago.
Yeah. So, but and it was only a
Yeah,
half moon too.
which does help, by the way. That's the one thing I've learned from the experiment is that the you can get a really good moonshot during the day better than at night because the contrast isn't as bad.
Oh yeah,
You're not dealing with black on full moon glow. A blue sky will give you less contrast, so it's a lot easier to get better photos off of it. And same thing with like a half moon. You're not dealing with that full moon just kind of blowing out your white your exposure.
yeah. That's a good point. And of course that all depends on the time of year, the
Mhm.
moonrise time, moonset time, all that stuff. So,
And
um,
like you said, whether we're unfortunately the best time to take, at least depending on where you live, but let's say in the northern hemisphere where you actually have weather,
mhm.
unlike California where they don't have weather. The winter is the best time because that's where the air is the stillest and the calmest, and cold air moves less, so you have less issues with that versus in the summer where you have more chances for storms, clouds, and just warmer air tends to cause issues in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's some good education right there. So next we've got one from Dwight, but I forgot to mix it. Oh, okay, hold on. I forgot to mix that in with the one that we're supposed to see. So Dwight, talk about this one just for a second while I find that other one.
Yeah. So I started out essentially going down to the beach and taking sunset photos. I didn't know what I was doing. All I know is I love sunsets and I love the way they look after I took the photos. So that was really what prompted me to learn more about photography and going into the iPhone photography school. Now, I look back at my old photo albums when I was a kid. I had the little pocket camera with the flash that twisted and that kind of thing. And my composition back then was pretty good. So I think I was really interested in photography back then, but it just started kicking in with these sunsets again. So I had gone through the iPhone for photography school as a result of my enjoyment of taking sunset photos. This happens to be a sunrise photo of over Lake Huron and Sarnia, Canada. So this was, I tried to employ the rule of thirds there, and this was the iPhone X, and I don't see a lot of processing on that, and I thought that was really kind of
Yeah.
interesting to
Yeah.
see.
So that led into this one here.
Yeah, so I really was and am interested in digital art. So this happened to be the first piece of digital art that I did on my own. So I essentially used that sunrise photo, superimposed the window, if you will, and then the girl looking out the window. So this was all inspired by, okay, I like taking photos of sunsets and sunrises, but hey, Dwight, you've always been a little bit into art. How can we take it to the next step? So this was my first piece of art that I did ever digitally. So that inspiration came out of the iPhone photography school and the iPhone art academy that I went through.
Yeah, and it's a cool concept. It's like she's on a cruise ship looking out the window and watching the sunset. And that, okay, for me, this is me speaking here, that takes some thought to put that together. Yeah, we've had this discussion before about creating these kind of artistic images, and it's just not something that my brain is prone to do. So, I think it's awesome that you did this right early on, early in your photography journey. So,
Yeah, and I'm seeing all my mistakes now, but it was my first piece. So, yeah, it was, a lot of manual masking and stuff. I can see where I did a little bit of maybe a little too much in some spots, but yeah, again, it's a happy mistake, Greg. You might pick 3 elements and put them
yeah,
together and just see how it works, and this just kinda came together that
yeah,
way. Could be kinda creepy too, It could be a creepy thing here going on. There might be something shooting out of that water soon in a scary movie, or it depends on how you
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at
for
it.
sure. So Dave, on when looking at this image, like you've put together some pretty creative pieces as well. Do you remember how you first started doing this kind of thing?
Honestly, it was more of images that didn't turn out quite as nice as I wanted them to. Whether it was because back on the iPhone 6S or 4S, where the shots were a lot more limited, where, the dynamic range wasn't as good, or the megapixels weren't quite, matching what I saw on my eye to match what it got in the sensor itself, and trying to add some additional things, including like the Picasso painting effects, or using Visionist, which I used a good amount, or just trying to do some black and white photos. Partially, sometimes for the look, sometimes I just want, black and white, sometimes what looks really good. And sometimes I do it to cover up where it doesn't quite look the way I want it to. And when you said that you're picking up things now, and those are things that probably only you would pick up, where someone who's looking at this wouldn't even notice things at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, the sun rays are yellow and the reflection on her shirt is white. I'd tone that down now, add some
Yeah.
color to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't. Could be backlit from the side, so I could probably get away with it.
Yeah. And, I think it's a pretty decent effort, right from the get-go,
Mhm.
and so I guess for myself in this kind of thing, the most I did when I first started doing this kind of thing was play with the filters that were in some of the apps, like, in Snapseed and
Mhm.
and right within Instagram itself and things like that. Like when I look at my 2012 picture a day for the whole year that I have on the wall over here, there's so many that are in there that I went crazy with filters on, stuff that I would just not really do right now. But
Yeah, my goal is to not recognize a tool that I'm using, right? Because I used to be in all the competitions and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's Distressed X, it's such and
oh
such.
yeah,
That's Distressed
yeah,
X, whatever. That's Picasso maxed into the flower pot, or oh yeah, that's the grunge filter off of Snapseed. I always try to differentiate somehow where you just can't. I don't want to know where it came from when I look at it again, and I don't want other people to pick
right,
up on that.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of a good way to go about it, If nobody can guess what you used in it, I'd say you done pretty good, right?
Mhm.
But I remember all the manual masking that I had to do back then. Now there was all the kind of the AI masking that does a lot of this stuff for you. But that was, taking a little brown brush and going around the edges, and yeah, those were time
Yeah,
consuming
for
days.
sure. So next we've got this one that I did, and Todd from LA said this, and I told him, I typed into the chat, hold your thought, because he says that I mentioned Ken Evans a few weeks ago because he shoots black and white, and I'm thankful for that because his photos are special. And this was inspired by Ken Evans. I've been watching his YouTube channel for a while now, and I didn't get out taking as many pictures this winter as I wanted to. A lot of it was because it was really, really cold, and I just wasn't feeling up to it. But what I find myself doing is I'll look at I've got an album in my Photos app called Black and White. Some of the ones that I've already done, but there's some colored images in there that I want to convert to black and white just to see how they look, right? Because I'm really inspired by what Ken does. And in fact, he commented on, I think it was 2 episodes ago. He put a comment on the YouTube video thanking us for mentioning him, and said don't be a stranger. So his channel is Ken Evans Mono, and I just he's such a deep thinker. His videos are about, anywhere from 7 to 8 minutes long, so they're not that long, but he's such a deep thinker in what he says in his videos because there's so much feeling and mood and story to what he's saying. And I don't know how he thinks of this stuff all the time, to be honest with you. I mean, if he hasn't written a bunch of books by now, he should because he could. But this particular one here, I was out for a drive in the country and I saw these trees. They're off in a distance. I had to use the Reflex 240 to get this. And I stopped and I took a shot. And the first time I did it, so this is the second attempt. So the first time I did it, there was something, oh, I know what it was. I did it handheld. So there was some of the trees, some of the branches on the trees were actually blurry a little bit. So I thought, you know what, I got to go back and I got to do that again. So I went back to the same spot. It was an overcast day, like we always have. And but you know, a lot of Ken's images are overcast or foggy. You'd almost think it's kind of like a doom and gloom series of photos, but you know, it's just the time of year, right? So I'm going to be curious to see what he does in the summertime coming up. And he's from the Mid-Atlantic, so not exactly sure where he is from, like where that is. Like, where's the Mid-Atlantic, guys? You guys are American.
I've always thought of Mid-Atlantic as like Pennsylvania. No,
Carolinas?
that's upper south. Yeah, I
No.
always considered it upper south. Mid-Atlantic would be like New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
maybe Maryland,
Yeah.
that area. Kind of between New England and the upper south.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, but he you know, he tells a story, a good story with every video he puts together, and in just a series of photos. And his videos are, you don't see him. All you see is these pictures and all that stuff. But I wanted to go back and redo that shot because I was taking the second time when I took this one, I took my tripod and I made sure I nailed everything sharp. So, but his editing style really inspired me with this one too, because he's generally got a bit of a vignette around it. The tonal range generally goes from maybe not quite pure white to not quite pure black, but yet some of his images do. But I don't know. When I did the edit on this one, I was inspired by his most recent video at the time, where a lot of his images weren't quite so harshly black and harshly white. They were a little subdued for whatever reason. Maybe they had fog in them. I can't remember, but I just remember watching the video and then sitting down and doing the edit on this, thinking, okay, I want the Ken Evans look on this image. So yeah, that's where the inspiration came from this one.
Yeah, Mid-Atlantic is just above North Carolina, starting in Virginia.
Okay.
Up the coastal states through Maine.
Yeah, okay. I kind of figured that's where it was. I didn't think it would be as far as like South Carolina and whatnot, but he's got a lot of great rural shots. Todd says he figures he might be from Baltimore, the Baltimore area. So yeah, that's Maryland. So, and he's not on the coast because I haven't seen any coastal shots, but yeah, he's a amazing photographer. His images are very simple. There's a lot of minimalism in some of them. And some of them I've seen, you know, very low key, so a lot of black and a lot of dark shadow areas. So, but when I started watching his videos, basically late last fall, I thought that's what made me think I want to do a lot of black and white over the winter, because you can get away with it so much better when there's like no foliage and, you know, things are just blah like they are now. We still haven't. I've seen a few flowers blooming on my walks around the neighborhood with the dogs and stuff, but we're not there yet. So it's still going to be black and white time for me. Anyway, next we have Dave's second one.
And really, I follow a person, Carla Cardello, who's a local photographer here in Pittsburgh. And she does, you know, more than just iPhone photography. But one thing she's kind of known for are her puddle reflection shots. And I was out one day doing a walk. It was a clearish day after a rain. And this was just on a road not too far away from my house, but just seeing that reflection and looking for it, where before I wouldn't have been looking for it, where you can see the reflection of the tree, and the tree's kind of framed really well by the puddle there. And then you have the very strong reflection on the left there of the fence. So just seeing her things and then starting just to try to notice them, where before it just would not be something I would even think to, I would think look down so you don't step in the puddle, not necessarily look down and see if there is a reflection in a puddle and how is that framing what's being reflected.
Yeah.
I think that's just an example of being aware of your
Mhm.
surroundings more,
Yeah.
Dave, and I can see how you pick up on that. I can also look at this and say, that those stones would be a great texture for an
Mhm.
overlay for some artwork or the wood on the
Mhm.
fence. You know, there's something in everything. That's nice that you were inspired to be able to actually
Mhm.
see that.
Yeah. Now she is the one that does the bridges too, is she not?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I started following her on
Mhm.
Instagram once you told us about her. But yeah, she's really good at the puddle reflections and I like the way that you said the puddle frames the tree nicely. Well, yeah, because it's very much the same shape, right?
Mhm.
Which is I don't, but I guess you could say it's luck because it's just really cool the way it does that, and
Yeah,
it's
because this is a road. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
paved, but it is a road. So really the depressions on the road are just caused by cars going over there or maybe cars getting stuck certain times and digging out bigger holes that
hmm
aren't filled in. I don't know if it's an official road or if it's one of those the road ends here, but there's little gravel bit that
oh
connects
yeah,
up the back of two roads type thing.
yeah.
Because I mean, it could just be a normal road that they decide just not to pay for whatever reason.
hmm What I think is cool too about this particular image is the fact that you've got the trees, the living trees on the right, and on the
Mhm.
left, on the left side puddle is what happens to them at
Mm.
some point. In a lot of cases, is they become fence wood or
Yeah,
like boards.
I wouldn't have
So
thought of that. Yep.
I think that kind of tells a bit of a story.
Yeah, and I want to say
It's like stay in the puddle or you're going to become wood.
Yeah.
And I want to say that, and I'm going to try to find this here. Let me see when I took this. Yeah, that was May of 2020.
Oh yeah.
So that was early May 2020. So that's by May, that's when, the grass is all green. The trees they're not completely filled out, but they're starting to get filled out.
Yeah.
And also being May of 2020 meant that I was doing a lot of walking and running around my neighborhood, either in the morning or midday, since that was the middle of lockdown.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's a great capture. Did you edit it in any way, or is
I
that just
did,
as it was
yeah.
shot?
No, no, well, I edited in terms of boosting the vibrance and a little bit more of the contrast. And I think I brought down some of the highlights just to see the puddle, see the reflection a lot better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it works well. So Dwight, your next one. Now this is the kind of thing here that I just wish I had the ability to think of this stuff because it's so
You
cool
just have
looking.
to do it, Greg. You just
Yeah.
have to do it. Just start taking pictures of everything. So Nikki Fitzgerald inspired me here. And my comment to you, Dave, on the previous slide was the pebbles and the stone. I mean, those were textures. You can
Hmm.
get down there and get some nice photos of that, and it could be used on an overlay very easily. In this case, I used, and we talked about reflex last week, but I used the light trails
Mm.
setting,
hmm
and I think it was up against a Christmas tree. So I grabbed that and I just kind of intentional camera movement it, and then I stopped and I had that as a texture. And then the trees was kind of the motion blur setting where you just move it a little bit as you're taking a picture of the tree. So then you isolate that tree, you put it on your canvas here. The gal, I believe she was dancing at some fiesta, and I caught her with the motion blur. And that might have been light trails as well, just really quick, just to get the little bit of blur.
hmm
And then I put the components together. And then in the background, I've got textures. This I just had some writing, and it actually looks like I actually know this Distressed X filter that I used on this, and I know those are Distressed X birds in the background. So anyway, it's just playing around. But Nikki kind of got me interested in light trails, motion blurs, and textures to the point where I couldn't walk anywhere without seeing textures wherever I went. I almost had to go to Textures Anonymous because I was if we're trying to get from point A to point B in 5 minutes, forget it. It's going to take us an hour. If
Yeah.
I'm walking by textures, I did not want to, you know. So anything you can take a picture of really that has texture to it can be used as an overlay on stuff like this. So
Yeah.
I think in this case, there's light coming through there, which, to me shows a little bit of energy. She's obviously moving, which coincides with that energy. The tree's static, although it is kind of blurry, which gives it, maybe a little bit of movement. And yeah, I mean, thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, she's really good. She's a regular contributor to Mobiography magazine,
Mhm.
and of course, she's got an article in the one that just come out, I think, within the last week. And I
Yeah,
haven't.
she's in most of them. She's in
Yeah,
most of. She
yeah,
has a little piece in most of them, and I've taken her classes and I've supported her book, and yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we go back a few years now.
yeah,
She's a wonderful woman.
yeah. She sure is. The lights, the light trails remind me of a heartbeat.
Oh, you mean an EKG?
Yeah,
Yeah, you might want to call 911 if your EKG looks like that. But
yeah.
but yeah, maybe especially the yellow ones are coming right through there. Yeah.
So I know you just did it like ICM, but I mean, was there any intention to try to get it like an EKG?
No,
Okay, it's just a
no,
happy accident.
no. I had it on light trails, and I probably just twisted the camera a little bit, maybe up and down, just to you can paint
Yeah.
with your camera,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
really cool.
yeah, yeah. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just so one last question before we go to the next one here. Was there a certain story you tried to tell with this, or just wanted to make like a happy scene?
The story comes together as you make a mistake,
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense. I didn't start this by saying, "Hey, I want to put this electrically charged dancing woman
yeah,
in a photo." I had I had all the textures, and I just put them together.
mm-hmm,
And then there's composition as well. And then if you hit it, that tells the story, which is subject to interpretation by viewers like yourself
yeah,
or other people that see it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because speaking of stories, just a quick little tangent here. Wilbur Long put a picture in the Facebook group the other day of it was just his briefcase sitting on his desk, and he had a decent sized printer, but it had a cover over it, and he made it in black and white. And his post was about kind of following up with the last show about reflex and how he is going to give it a try and stuff like that, because he's been a halide guy for a while. And he said he just posted the picture because there wasn't really anything about it. And when I looked at it, I thought, you know what? I see what could be one of many stories here. And
Mhm.
I told him I thought I saw the view of the desk would be the photographer's view looking at it. And he found this briefcase and he didn't know whether to open it or not. And, had to wonder what's inside it and all this stuff, So, the imagination can go just about anywhere when it comes to an image.
Yeah.
So with this one of the girl dancing, with the lights and things like that, I mean, that could go from just a happy dancer to somebody's viewpoint if they were like tripped out on acid. You could go just about anywhere with it, which I think
Yeah.
is the cool thing about all this.
Yeah. And to illustrate your point, Greg, when I saw that photo from Wilbur Long, to me, he captured kind of energy that was happening at the time. It was just that the subject was missing. So
Hmm.
there was the briefcase. There were other items that showed somebody was busy, but they just weren't in the frame at that point, which gave, kind of a nostalgic look to it. Now,
Yeah.
if I had that photo, I'd probably really make it look vintage, and I think that would have been
Yeah.
would be a good way to go too.
Because I commented on that. I said it looks like something you'd find in a news magazine from the 70s.
Sure.
Because it was a black and white, and it looked like just a desk, and you throw your stuff on it, and That just the kind of the vibe I got from it. So
And if I recall correctly, he was downplaying the photo a little bit,
yeah,
and we're like, "Hey, whoa, hold on a second.
yeah,
I think this is probably better than your interpretation of it in
yeah,
my eyes."
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's amazing the stories that can be told from these things. Like
Mhm.
Dave's blue caddy. I still have that picture. And I love that picture. It's a like a 50s Cadillac on the street, and the way Dave edited it, it gave it a blue cast overall, and he used was a photo room, Dave, to blur the background,
Yeah, photo room to cut out the actual
the
car
car.
itself and
Yeah,
then give it the color of the background.
yeah, and the story that can come out of that for me is that it's just like a blur from the past. Everything's blurred like sideways except the car, and it's just the blur could mean that you're traveling through time and seeing this old car on the street. I mean, it could be a number of things. It could be anything. So story, we should do a show about this storytelling thing sometime. And I think we can probably have some fun with that. But
I actually wanted to remind myself if you guys remember the Rockford Files
yep,
from the
Yes, great
70s,
show. Great
it,
actor.
if you remember the beginning of it, the beginning of the
Mhm.
theme song when the phone's ringing and it pans over his desk.
Mhm.
And his
hmm
desk is just this disheveled desk with all these, the phones here, files over here, everything kind of thrown everywhere. And Wilbur's photo kind of reminded me almost like a detective noir. You could almost make a version of that.
yeah,
Yeah, and opposite of that, we also know that person who isn't busy, but that does that to their desk anyway to make themselves look busy.
Mm-hmm.
That's like putting a pencil behind your ear and having a worried look on your face. The boss just walks right by thinking you're busy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And by the way, they're doing a reboot of the Rockford Files. I heard.
Can't replace James Gardner though.
No, no, that's right.
There's no way.
No.
Those 70s shows were the best.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't replace Columbo. You can't
They
replace
did a decent job
Robert Blake.
they did a decent job with the new Hawaii Five-0 a few years ago. It wa
Yeah, I was
it wasn't it was still but it wasn't like a cop it didn't feel like a copy. It felt like
yeah.
more like an updated. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that
but
was
it's
pretty good, but
really hard because so much detective stuff back then was like, "Oh, we need to find a payphone," or, "Oh, they're not picking up the phone. I wonder where they could be."
Yeah, yeah.
and the suspects all gave up so easily.
Well, yeah, that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No, that's right. So finally, we've got my second one here. This was taken a couple of years ago, I think, obviously in the fall with the colors. Gavin Hardcastle I watch his videos all the time, and he's a Canadian guy he used to be out in BC, now he's in Nova Scotia, and he always, 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 always talks about the light. And since I've been paying attention to his videos, with regards to getting the right light and whatnot, I look for that now. I had about 4 or 5 pictures to pick from for my second one, like that were inspired by him. And he's Photo Tripper on YouTube. If you want to see him, it's FOTO Tripper. And we'll have links to all these people that inspire us wherever they are online, whether it's an Instagram account or a YouTube or whatever, so you can go check out their stuff. But Gavin, when he gets up for a sunrise, he'll get up at 4 a.m. It's pitch black. He'll walk to wherever he's going to go, and he'll sit there and he'll wait and wait and wait for the light to kick off, and that sort of thing. And when I was at this location, this is at a local beach just a little bit north of town here. A friend of mine lives out there, so I don't think he was with me this day, but the sun was just coming through the clouds, and just this great big beam of sunlight shone across the sea right in front of me. And I think I used I think it was before I got the 240. So I think this was just with the the 5X on the 15 Pro Max, and I just couldn't. I took a few shots and I shot them in RAW. I don't think they were Pro RAW. I think they were just RAW, and I put this in Luminar Neo to do the edit because it was obviously very subdued in the raw image. So, but when Gavin gets these pictures, when the light just hits right, there's just something magical about his images, and that's how I looked at this one after I was done with the edit. I knew it had potential when I took it, and again, it was taken like 2 or 3 years ago, but when I took it, I thought, okay, one of these days, I'm going to be able to edit this and make something out of it. Is it something I would blow up? Probably not, because this bright area on the left where the clouds are,
that looks blown out. Yeah.
Well, it's actually not blown out. Well, okay, it was a little bit. And when I used the curve tool to get it back, but I guess it is kind of blown out. But I mean, the histogram now shows that it's, not to the edge, but
okay.
But yeah, I think it was originally blown out. But I mean, so because of that, it's not going to really go anywhere. But I thought it was a good example of talking about the inspiration for this image, which was Gavin Hardcastle, and the fact that he's taught me, indirectly, just through his videos, he's taught me to really look for the light. It's one thing to have nice warm light in the evening, but it's another to have it just so that it's hitting your subject just right. So if you got to move, a certain way to have that light hitting from the side or whatever, that's the kind of thing I look for now. I look for how the light is hitting the subject or playing with the scene or whatever. And if it's not right, if I have time or if I have the opportunity, I'll wait for it. I think it's just a great exercise in improving your image by waiting on the light.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like fishing, right? You've got to go to your spot. You've got to wait for the fish to bite, and it may be a 30-second window when that fish swims by.
Yeah.
I've seen some landscape photography courses where people will get in, 4 a.m. They get to their spot, they get set up, and sometimes they hit that magic window to where they can take their shot when their light's just the way they want it. And sometimes they miss it and they have to come back the next day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to do the process or the procedure or the way you're talking about is it takes patience and it takes fortitude and a willingness to really go get it.
Yeah. I had another point. Oh yeah, Peter Lick. Have you heard of him? He's a landscape photographer who he sold an image one time for I don't know, millions. It was the Phantom, it was called, and it was in that Antelope Canyon, I think it's called, and there was dust coming down or sand coming down in the light ray, similar to this. And anyway, I seen one of his videos on YouTube years ago where he went to a place. It looked like it might have been Monument Valley. I'm not sure where it was exactly, but it was that kind of thing. And he had his X-Pan camera set up to do a panorama, and he was going to take one shot and then leave. So he was just waiting for the light to be right. And when he took the shot, he packed his stuff up and he left. So that too is a really good exercise in photography by just committing yourself to taking one picture. You find a location, you kind of scope out what you want to do, get your composition set and everything else. Don't take any test shots. Don't do none of that, but just take one image and leave. And I did that one time. And when I got home, I kicked my butt so hard because I didn't take the time to go through everything. This is back before my iPhone days. I didn't take the time to check the aperture that I was using. And it wasn't, the depth of field, it was too shallow. So some of the stuff that I wanted to be sharp wasn't. And I mean, you can't polish a turd in that respect. You can't sharpen what's not sharp, right? So one of these days I'm going to try it again, this time with an iPhone, obviously, and see what I get. And you're on your honor system. You're on the honor system when you do this, because sure, it'd be easy to go out and say, oh yeah, this was just one shot, but you got to be honest with yourself before you can be honest with everybody else, and just take one picture. In fact, I challenge everybody to try that at least once. It's a really good exercise in slowing down and thinking about what you want to do. Make sure your camera settings and all that stuff are just where you need them, and then take that one shot and then get the heck out of there. Go home. So it's a good exercise. But when it comes to the light, it's Gavin who has really taught me a lot with his YouTube videos and that. And I asked him one time on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, if he would come on here and talk about his experience shooting with a phone, because he did one video where he put a phone up against his mirrorless, and he talked about the differences between the two and that. And I thought, if he keeps using that phone, I'm going to ask him. And he only did it with the one video, but I thought, he's funny too. He's really funny. If you want a good laugh, some of his videos have some really good comedy bits in them. But anyway, that's where I got this one, the idea, or not the idea of this one, but the inspiration behind this one. It came from, as soon as I saw that light beam coming down, I just thought of Gavin and how he would capture that. And I did take a few different shots, but this was probably the best one. So that's our inspiration. And that's where we get our inspiration from. And I'm sure there's many more places. I mean, I can think of a number of photographers that I draw inspiration from, including you guys. I mean, some of the stuff that you guys do inspires me to try things. And I know one of the things I've got to try more is some of the digital art stuff, because both you guys are pretty versed at it and I'm the rookie. So, well, anything else on inspiration, guys, that you can think of, like where to look or how to look for inspiration?
It's everywhere. You just have to slow down and look and absorb. And I think we have all our senses and go after things that interest you. And there's plenty of content out there to inspire you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, photography is light, right? Without light, there'd be no photography. So yeah, it's just something that we have, and I think we have to just be in touch with it. For a majority of my life, I think I'd mentioned this in a previous show. If I was going from point A to point B, if I'm walking from here to my car, and I'm walking through a pathway, and I get to my car, I didn't notice all the cobblestone paths or the birds of paradise blooming, or the different flowers, the cat sitting on the porch. Now I'm just hyper aware of my surroundings, and I get inspiration, as I mentioned earlier, of my surroundings. So from my surroundings. So you just have to look and just enjoy the nature and beauty around you, and absorb it and use it as you see fit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess we have ourselves a show. And if you're watching this after the fact, after we recorded it on YouTube, drop a comment about what inspires you. Let us know, and try that one shot challenge. I encourage everybody to give that a try just once. It could be anything, anywhere, doesn't matter. But just try the one shot challenge, where you just take one shot and that's it, and be honest with yourself about it. And I think you'll find it quite rewarding if you nail the shot. I mean, it's so much easier now. Like when Peter Lick did it, he had a film camera, so he couldn't tell what he got until he got home to develop it. And it's so easy now to see what you got with a digital camera and with an iPhone.
Yeah.
But when you take the shot, do your best not to look at it, and wait till you get home, and then see what you got, do your edit, and post it. See what comes out.
And try to look at it on the big screen, because sometimes the photo that you see in your viewfinder on your iPhone will not match what actually shows on your screen. So it's I'm a firm believer of, if you have the ability to see your photos in a larger format, do that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I think it was an interesting discussion, and I'm always looking for inspiration, whether it's online or talking to friends or whatever. So I think it was a good one. And on that note, I guess we'll see everybody in the next one.
Have a great one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.